Welcome to Patrick's Scale Studio. My name's Patrick. I'll be your host. This is just going to be a really quick video just to close out the little series I started a couple years ago regarding Tamiya's Spitfire Mark 9C and Revell's Hurricane Mark 2B, both of these in 1/32 scale. Originally I intended it to kind of be a comparison video here between the two different manufacturers. Frankly, the build videos would have been really long and arduous and didn't look like it generated a whole lot of attention. I mean, after all, there's probably dozens upon dozens of builds of these two particular airplanes on YouTube. These, in fact, is exact kits. But again, just wanted to close it out and not leave that hanging. So I'm going to go ahead and cut away here and we'll zoom in on some features of each of these airplanes and show some of the finishing touches I'm going to throw on them just so I can put them in the display cabinet. So we'll start off with the Revell Hurricane Mark 2B. I'll be right back here when I get some things prepped. Starting here with the Hurricane. Originally when I started this build series, I kind of wanted to do a comparison here between the Revell kit and the Tamiya kit. They're both over $100, $100 US, and just kind of wanted to see if we could get a good comparison of what you get. And for the most part, I haven't been disappointed by either manufacturer. I would have originally predicted that Tamiya would come out on top with the level of detail and everything like that, but all in all, the Revell kit built into a wonderful looking static model of the Hurricane. It actually looks like a Hurricane. Pretty pleased with how everything went together. There were some fiddly bits inside the cockpit that were a little bit less than easy to get together, but it worked out. I used the photo etch seatbelts from the Tamiya Spitfire so we could have some form of a seatbelt on this. And we'll go ahead and have a look at the bottom here. Some things I would do a little bit differently here would be, you can see here there's a little bit of sanding dust inside this clear lens here for one of the landing lights. And that just came from when I was blending this into the wing. Some dust got in there. So I would go about that a little bit differently here so I could avoid that. This one is nice and clear. Looks perfect. This one absolutely does not. Add a little bit of easy line back here for the antenna. I'm not sure if that's focusing for you. There it is. And I lost the decal set to this. I'm not sure at what point I did, so I ended up purchasing a one-man army stencil set for it and painted everything on. And everything looks, I like the look of it better. I might start doing that going forward. It's not the cheapest solution, but it does look better than the decals. You know, all over the airplane where any of these stencils are, it looks a lot cleaner than the actual decals. So one thing that I did not do in my rush to get this done, and I really wanted to get these done, get them off my bench so I could start new projects. A lot of times I have some difficulty focusing on finishing current projects when there's something really new and shiny in the box. So one thing I forgot to do on this was add some of these red decals over these gun ports right here. During World War II, common practice for the British and maybe the Allies in general was to cover these gun ports with this red tape, and what it did was prevent the air at higher altitudes from getting in there, and any moisture inside these guns could potentially freeze. So this tape here was just put over these ports, and it prevented the guns from freezing up. So there was no problem for the guns to fire and shoot right through it when it came time to pull the trigger. But yeah, they definitely needed to have that in place so that those guns were there when they needed it. So I'm going to go ahead and a couple of those on here just to close this one out. I got a little bit of water, and we're not going to do all 8 of these. This would be boring as could be, but I figure it's worth at least getting a couple of these on here on video. Paying this kit what it's worth. Zoom in here a little bit. Oh, we're already zoomed in. I'll let the water do its work. Put a little bit of micro set around this. And I just happen to have, I usually keep all of my decal sheets after every completed model, so when times like this come up where I have misplaced or ruined a decal or something like that, I've got a spare to fall back on. And these aren't actually decals meant for this. They're off of a Revell Spitfire. 1/32 Spitfire, and it's the red portion of a fin flash, I think, for the for a French livery. After these have set up, then I can go in and poke some holes through them. Like this has already been out and already downed a couple German fighters. And it's on the ground. Pilot went in to maybe get a sandwich and some tea or something like that, and is going to get ready, and the plane is going to get ready for another patrol of the skies. A lot of concern usually goes into a lot of these red decals. I've heard a lot of chatter about, one, if they're not put on all uniformly, then the casual observer might think that you just did a really poor job of putting on your decals. But you do have to remember that these were just human beings in a hurried fashion, potentially applying pieces of tape. So they don't have to be perfect. They're not supposed to look perfect. And I'm not going to any modeling contests or anything with these where the quote-unquote casual observer might make some derisive remark about my decal work, but you get the idea of getting these on. I'm going to go ahead and finish up the other 6, and we'll come back when they're all dry, poke some holes in them, and maybe put a little black paint around them to kind of look like some of the you know, burnt black powder, cordite, what have you, that fired through them. So be right back. All right, well, went ahead and got those red decals put on. Again, those were just kind of cut mainly just by sight, no real particular measurements given, and it was part of a larger decal that would have been on a Spitfire, the rudder flashing. It looked like kind of a French flag. So I just cut out the red portion of that and cut it up into spaces, or different pieces. I said spaces. And then with each of those, kind of slapped them on here. I'm trying to make it semi-uniform, but again, not 100% uniform, because in real life, it would have just been big strips of tape that got slapped over those gun ports. So now, because we've got this with some exhaust staining and a little bit of weathering and a little bit of the staining from the gun smoke. I want to also kind of make it look like maybe this had just come back from a mission. So in order to do that, I've got an old airbrush needle. I use this for a lot of different things, for applying CA glue, poking and prodding at various things, sometimes even setting holes in plastic if I want a good drilling spot. And basically all I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and poke it right through. And I'm not even going to be neat and gentle about it. I'm just going to go in there like a rhinoceros in a china shop. Completely wreck out that hole. And keep the jokes clean, fellas. Alright, so now with those right there, I don't really like the look of the flappy decal film right there. And given enough time on its own, it might go back and kind of semi-cover that hole again. So with that, I'm going to take a little bit of micro sol, a little brush, and I'm just going to kind of apply it liberally in there. As you can see, that one was trying to self-close again. And what I'd like for this to represent is just that the pilot on his last flight hit that trigger and fired off these machine guns, and they blew through the red tape and hopefully into enemy fighter. Alright, so same thing over here. And the nice thing about the particular decal film that I chose for doing this, it came from an older Revell kit, but the decals were printed off by Cartograph. So the benefits with that, the reason why I mention that is the decals have a flat finish. I don't have to go back over this with a matte finish and to kind of get them to blend in and not stand out too much. So that's a good thing. Alright. So with that, it's going to get put aside dry, but otherwise, my Hurricane is completely finished. So I will get some pictures up at the very end, along with the Spitfire, but for now I'll move on and talk about the Spitfire. And here is my Tamiya 132nd Spitfire Mark 9C. And I went away from the box art scheme on this and went for the scheme B. It still has the full wings and not the chopped off wings like scheme C, but it's got this interesting almost like a desert camouflage scheme. One thing that was unexpected is I was, like the Hurricane, expecting to put those antenna lines going from the top of the fin to the antenna mast here, but that is not the way the Tamiya instructions show it, so I went with the instructions. One thing I was going to leave off again was the blast holes there and the red tape, but again, at the end of the day, it was not really going to keep me up at night over it, but I felt like I owed these model kits and the finished airplanes, felt like I owed them the full treatment, so I went ahead and got that on there. In addition, I got this little reflector on there. At first I wasn't even going to do that, but when again I figured I've got the kit parts, might as well use the little rear view mirror, so it's on there as well. This kit was a lot of fun to put together, but at the same time it definitely had its frustrating moments. The cowling covers did not fit 100% properly, so I had to edge a lot of these cowling covers with some thin polystyrene sheet and blend those in just so I could kind of close gaps. And I realized with removable cowling covers and things like that, you're going to have some natural gaps here and there, but these gaps were just too much, and they were too large of gaps, so it felt like they really needed to go. I'll go ahead and so I'm going to show you the bottom. One beautiful thing about this kit was the rivet detail on it is very, very subtle. So, and because I've got this really light sky blue color on there, I went with a dark gray panel line wash instead of black because the contrast would have been too sharp, and some of it even stands out still pretty dark, but for most of these rivets though, it's just barely there, but it looks good. The bottom roundels, these had to be painted on. I tried using the Tamiya decals, and decals is just not a strong thing for Tamiya as far as their kits go. In the past, I haven't had too much trouble with them. The decals are just really, really thick, and eventually enough microsol on top of it, kind of get them to blend in and go away. I've tried sanding them, but usually my attempts to do so end up tearing the decals or screwing something else up. So, but these right here, given the placement of the roundels and what they were supposed to fit over, the decals just would not snuggle down at all. So I ended up pulling them off completely, sanding the area a bit, and just painting these on. I still had some leftover stencils from the one-man army masking set that I used for the Hurricane, and I just kind of had to Frankenstein some roundels together, but it looks good in the end. But that is the Spitfire. Let me get a flashlight here and show you the cockpit looks like. And again, I'll have some pictures at the very end of this, but pretty happy with how this came together. The only real aftermarket besides the stencils in the bottom was the seat harnesses. It's the I can't remember what the name of the company is, but they're like fabric harnesses, and I wanted to use those instead of the photo etch provided in the Tamiya kit, and then I took the photo etch in the Tamiya kit and moved it over to using the Hurricane. This cockpit is a lot more visible than on the Hurricane, so I felt like this really benefited well from those fabric harnesses, whereas the Hurricane is just kind of a little bit smaller, a little bit, the openings a little bit more difficult to see. So as a comparison there, you can kind of see there's just a lot more of a viewing angle to get into the Spitfire to have a look. So, well, final thoughts are both kits were great. I think it's unfair to compare them though, as I was originally setting out to do. Just completely different styles of how the models go together, and you know, the companies have different ways of engineering and everything like that. The Hurricane went together well. The Spitfire went together well. Both had their little issues here and there, but overcome. They look like really, really great finished models. So that kind of wraps up the dual English World War II fighter build. And glad to have these in the case, displayed properly, and not sitting on the shelf gathering dust any longer. So after this, we're going to dive back into the ships here, and that'll be 1/350th ships. So stay tuned for a new upcoming series for those builds. And until that time comes around, please stay safe and happy modeling.